The only way to measure success is to measure backwards.
You're listening to Overwhelmed Working Woman, the podcast that helps you be more calm and more productive by doing less. I'm your host, Michelle Gauthier, a former overwhelmed working woman and current life coach. On this show, we unpack the stress and pressure that today's working woman experiences. And in each episode, you'll get a strategy to bring more calm, ease, and relaxation to your life.
Hi, friend. Today we're talking about a mindset that has changed the way I think about progress and achievement and what it actually means to be successful. And it's from a book called The Gap and the Gain by Dan Sullivan and Dr. Benjamin Hardy. And it is one of my favorite books. I feel like I say that every time I do one of these book reviews, but I am, just to be honest, I'm reviewing my favorite book. So it is one of my absolute faves. It is the one that I gift my clients most often. And I think if you were to poll all my former clients who I have sent books to, that they would say this was the one that had the biggest impact on them. It is a huge game changer if you can really get into and start living this gap and the gain way. So today I will tell you the big ideas about the gap versus the gain. I'll talk to you about a couple of my favorite takeaways from the book and how you can apply what this book teaches you today. So that way you can either just learn something from this podcast, or you can decide, oh, wow, I think I really actually need to read that book. Either way, I'm happy. All right, so let's first talk about the big idea of this book, which is essentially what is the gap versus the gain. The core concept is that most of us, especially high-achieving, growth-minded people, like everyone who listens to this podcast, myself included, are stuck in what the book calls the gap. And what the gap means is that you're measuring yourself and your success against an ideal, a future version of yourself, some perfect outcome, or an impossible standard in your mind. And what that means is no matter how much you do, it's never enough, because the moment you achieve something, you just raise the bar again. In the book, they talk about an entrepreneur, and he has started a business, and a couple years in, he makes $2 million. At the end of the year, he's made $2 million. And he comes to the authors of The Gap and the Gain and says, I feel like a complete loser. Like I have just totally failed this year. And when they inquired, he said, well, in my mind, I wanted to make $10 million. He's measuring the gap, which is the amount between $2 million that he did make and $10 million that he had in his mind, and focusing on that versus focusing on the fact that he just made $2 million. And when they interviewed him about it, he said, oh my gosh, yes, when I first started my business, I would dream of making 6 figures. And now here I am making $2 million and just making it like it doesn't count at all. So the gap is looking at that area between what you did accomplish and what you had in your mind as a future goal. The gain, on the other hand, is when you measure yourself against your past self. So you look at where you started and you measure backwards. In the case of this guy, starting a business a couple years ago, making 0 and then making 6 figures, and then this time making $2 million, you look backwards, and if you use the gain thinking, you measure what you have done and where you have succeeded. And it's still okay for him to have that goal of making $10 million. You can have whatever kind of outcome that you would like to have, but it's just so important to, first of all, look backwards and see where you have grown and what you have accomplished, and then to celebrate that. Another non-millions of dollars example is if you're a person who started working out this year because you really wanted to get stronger or lose weight or something like that, and you had a goal to go to your gym 100 times, and at the end of the year you've gone to the gym 80 times and you're like, oh, I didn't make it. But you went 80 times more than you went the year before that. So if you measure with the gain, it's 80 visits to the gym when. If you measure with the gap, it's 20 times when you didn't go. And guess which one of those is going to make you much more likely to continue working on that habit? The gain, of course. So here are my 3 favorite takeaways from this book. Takeaway number 1 is the only way to measure success is to measure backwards. Don't measure success forward toward an ideal, or you'll never feel like you're winning. But when you look back, you start to see your strength and your growth and your momentum, and you realize, oh, wow, I actually have come a long way, or I have made a little progress, whatever progress you have made. The other takeaway is living in the gain gives you energy. So you really have the option to live in the gap or live in the gain just based on the way that you're thinking. But when you live in the gap, everything feels heavy. You feel like you're failing all the time. You're always chasing and proving and pushing and try to get to more, more, more. But when you live in the gain, you start to feel proud and confident and motivated, which then generates more success. It's really not about lowering the bar. It's just giving yourself credit where you are already doing a good job. This is a big one with my clients. When we talk about this and they start implementing this in their lives really start to change. Another favorite takeaway from the book is that even setbacks or failures can become wins when you live in the gain. So if you had a tough conversation or missed a deadline or fell short on a goal, but you learned something, that's still a gain. When you're moving forward in any way, shape, or form, you can always look back and find some gain in there as long as you're learning. It's not about perfection. It's really about perspective. So let's think about how you can apply this to your life today. In the book, they recommend asking yourself at the end of each day, or you could even do this for a week, what did I get done today? What progress did I make, even if it was small? How am I different from how I was a month ago or a week ago? And it really rewires your brain to look for success instead of looking for lack. One thing that I do with my one-on-one clients is every time we get on our call, the first thing I ask them for is wins. Tell me your wins for the week. What are your gains for the week? And at first, it's hard for them to come up with them. Once they get used to me asking them that every week, they start to notice it. And oftentimes we'll write them down throughout the week. And when we get on the call, they're immediately like, ooh, I've got so many wins to tell you about today. And it's not that they have so many more wins, it's that they start paying attention to these so many wins. And then when they tell them to me, they get even more motivated and that gets them more wins. I just can't recommend this concept in this book enough, in case you can't tell from the excitement in my voice. I absolutely love it. I would recommend it to anybody. One of the things that I do in my 2026 Your Best Year class, which is going to be on January 6th this year at noon Central Time, is I teach you how to set goals that are based only on things that are in your control, which is very in line with gain thinking. For example, a big part of my business is this podcast that you're listening to. Thanks for listening, by the way, as a side note. And if I were to create a goal that was get this podcast in the top 1%. So right now it's in the top 1.5%. I want to get it into the top 1%. That is not a good goal to have. That is a good desired outcome. But the goal that I'm going to set for myself that I can measure backwards against is writing and recording and putting out 2 episodes a week that I have put a lot of time and effort into that I feel good about. Another thing that I do is I pitch other podcasts to see if I can be on as a guest on their podcast. I will poll my audience and ask them what they think and what they like so that I can create content that's more interesting to them. So those are all things that are in my control that I can look back on and see that I have succeeded on the goals that I have set for myself and that I can hope to get that top 1% spot. But if I don't, I know that I have done a good job putting out good content and feeling good about hitting my own goals. So if you want to learn how to set goals like that so that you can have a more successful 2026, I would love to have you come and join the class. It's $26. So it is a no-brainer investment. It's a 1-hour workshop, and you will learn all about how to set goals that fit in with your lifestyle, how to choose your word for the year, decide which areas of your life you want to focus on. And by the end of the class, you will know exactly what goals you want to create and how to word them and schedule them so that you can really execute this year. Okay, go read The Gap and the Gain and sign up for my class. I think you'll love it.
Thank you for listening to the Overwhelmed Working Woman podcast. If you want to learn more about my work, head over to my website at michellegothier.com. See you next week.